There we go. Okay, so again, thank you all for joining us for this session on the emergency aid for basic needs. Oh, I'll advance for me. For those of you who do not know the Gardner Institute, we're a 24-year-old nonprofit organization that is located, or at least our home office is located in Brevard, North Carolina, although about 2/3 of our staff work remotely now at this point. And what we do is partner with individual educators, colleges and universities, and philanthropic organizations to help institutions improve upon their student success. And ultimately, the reason why we do that is we're striving to help higher education meet what we see as its equity and social justice missions. In terms of who will lead the Emergency Aid Academy for you, there is myself. I am Brent Drake, the Senior Vice President for Operations and Research here at the Gardner Institute. I've been in that role at Gardner now for a little over 2 years, but I've been affiliated with the Institute since about 2011 when I've been working as a external evaluator and researcher for them until I came into my full-time role a couple years ago. I'm joined today by Dr. Robinson Kramer. I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Brent. I'm happy to be with you. Like Brent said, I'm a vice president at Gardner Institute, and I work with our schools mostly on transformation work. But in previous roles, I've worked as a program officer at Lumina Foundation, where we funded the creation of emergency aid programs across the country, specifically at community colleges. And then I led implementation of an emergency aid fund at a community college system. So I'm really excited about this piece of work within Gardner Institute's portfolio.
Thank you, Jill. And then our third facilitator, who unfortunately can't join us today, but does intend to be a part of the synchronous sessions with us, is Dr. Corey Klassman, the president of Southeast Technical College. Corey has been president there for, I gotta think, number of months now, but he recently joined Southeast Technical College. He was a former associate vice president for the Gardner Institute, and before that spent a number of years at Ivy Tech Community College, both within their IR and data infrastructure, but also as the vice president for student success, where he oversaw, along with Jill, part of their emergency aid efforts there. And my slides keep wanting to not advance. There we go. That is just advancing one. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Jill now to talk a little bit about why we have built this academy and what Gardner's purpose is in it.
Okay, thanks, Brent. So, I mean, I'm talking to you all who know that this is the reality, but part of the reason that we think it's so important as a retention tool is that students identify financial reasons as one of the primary causes for not persisting with their post-secondary work, or stopping out or dropping out. We also know that the demographics of our students have changed. And so when I talk to my family and friends about why this piece of work is so important, you know, my daughter is in college now, my son's going next year, but my daughter calls every 6 months or so with some kind of crisis, and her dad and I are able to handle it. So it could be she hit a pothole last year. She needed $180 to patch her tire and to fix it. So we put the money in her account. She's had friends who have run out of meal swipes, and so they trade around meal swipes or figure out how to cover each other's you know, grocery bills until the next student loan payment comes in or the next paycheck comes in. And so sometimes we'll put $50 in her account for her and her friends for food. And so these kinds of things, many of us who've had kids go through college, the parents or the family are the safety net, but we know many of our students don't have this safety net. So the emergency aid piece is so important because we are, focusing on persistence. And so we want to make sure that students have all the tools they need, and the playing field is more equitable, because not all of them have Mom Kramer to call for their Pop Tire or their Kroger Target grocery run. So about this academy, so we are drawing on research, again, not just anecdotal evidence from my daughter's time at college, but we know that participants need these kinds of funds to stay in school. We know that small amounts of money, and we're talking about sometimes as little as $25 for a bus ticket, can help them stay in school. And there's evidence to show this. So we'll be drawing on research, existing effective practices of programs. And what we'll do with you, Brent asked you to put what your emergency aid programs are in the chat, but many times our colleges and universities don't even know all the resources. And I think somebody put in the chat that there's many more and they're spread around. We don't even know what exists. So in our first cohort, we had a small private liberal arts college, and they said, we don't have anything for emergency aid. When they started doing their audit, they realized they had a food pantry, they had a clothing pantry. The science department had a small stash of Walmart gift cards that they gave out when students came and needed groceries. So we'll start with an audit of what you have and the kinds of ideas that you have. And that really just takes talking to people on your campus. The next step is we will talk about developing a financial model, including fundraising ideas. How do we sustain this? Many institutions used the CARES Act dollars from the COVID crisis. And then when that money ran out, they were trying to think about fundraising ideas and financial models. So we'll think about a financial model also to help with sustainability. We'll come up with an action plan. So I think, let's see, Deanna at Capital said that there's no real application process. So we'll talk about communication and marketing of this program internally and externally, applications, what it should look like, the different types of applications, where we should start, where it should be housed. And then we'll talk about a data strategy. So Brent and Corey and I are all data people as well. And in fundraising, to continue to raise dollars for these programs, we need to show impact. So we will talk to you about a data strategy for communicating impact, student persistence and return impact. Okay, so at the beginning, we will define emergency aid for basic needs. So this could mean a lot of things, both in-kind financial support, in-kind, like I said, the one school, they had a clothing pantry and they had a food pantry. So those are in-kind donations that are considered emergency aid. And then they also had a stash of Walmart gift cards and $20 bills that they could give students. So we're talking about both financial and non-financial resources for students. And those are effective practices around emergency aid. So we'll spend some time talking about effective practices and what has worked at different types of schools. So we've worked with community colleges, private schools, 2-year, 4-year. We've even worked with a primarily online school. So many of these practices transfer over institution type. Now, the one that was primarily online, having a clothing pantry when you serve students in 48 states, isn't as effective, but we will talk about matching, what is effective with your institution. We'll talk about documenting forms of emergency aid, so what constitutes an emergency, and then crafting these plans and financial models. So what elements need to be in place to set up an effective emergency aid plan, and what kind of financial model do you need to sustain this? And then again, like I said, the last piece, will be tracking impact. And we're doing this in a cohort model, so you can share ideas of what is working on your campus, and you can get ideas from other institutions on what they do. And so we'll do a lot of peer feedback and sharing. So your team, who should participate? We know that all of you are busy and have lots and lots of things to do, but we do find it most effective if you bring a small team to plan this with us. So we suggest 3 to 5 team members. And then of course you can start to pull in people from other locations. So that small liberal arts school that I keep referencing, they found out that their ministry center actually held the food pantry. So that was not a part of their original 3-person team, but they brought somebody in from their ministry center onto the team later. They found out that the science department had that stash of gift cards, so they brought the science department in. So we recommend that the 3 to 5 people be a mix of people, of staff who are currently working on emergency aid programs, somebody from financial aid, because if you're giving out dollars, you want to make sure that this doesn't negatively impact students' financial aid packages. Excuse me, somebody from finance or development. I'm sorry, hold on just a second.
I can pick up for Jill here. So we recommend having someone either from your financial units in terms of the finance model, or from development services, because we talk about fundraising campaign in terms of this to be able to sustain these kinds of efforts. So it's good to have those individuals involved. Also, it's good to have institutional research staff involved, because there is the data collection component of it, which is really important in terms of maintaining and showing your ROI with the program. So we highly recommend having them involved. And then anyone else that really focuses around student success leadership on your campus, particularly when it comes to trying to help students around their basic needs. From the first pilot we ran of this in fall 2022, we had 3 of the institutions that were involved in that, 3 of the 4 that participated in the data collection portion of it to be able to show their ROI. And all 3 of those institutions had either expanded or instituted an emergency grant portion of their work, of what they did in this. And so when we took a look at what they had done in terms of their emergency grants and looked at the re-enrollment of those students versus comparable students who were non-recipients, we saw a pretty significant bump in their semester to semester retention rates that occurred with it. And this is part of what we talk about in terms of why we have you do the data collection and building out your return on investment models to help sustain this as you go forward as an institution. So in terms of next steps for enrolling in this, all of you that are part of our transformation institutions, you do not have to submit an application. You will work with your relationship managers to just get names to us for who will participate in this. However, for everybody else that is not already enrolled in our transformation program, there is an application process that will close on January 31st. You can find it at the link for myjngi.org. And we will also email this slide deck and that application site to everyone when this is completed. It's a very short application. It's about 3 questions that just make sure really that we're meeting the goals you're trying to accomplish with participating in the program, so that we know it's a good fit for you being enrolled. Again, for those of you not in the transformation process, the fee structure for how the Academy works is listed on this slide. We do all of it based around your undergraduate enrollment as seen on College Navigator. So that's how we generate what your fee tier would be with it. Jill talked about the fact that the structure of this is that we have a number of synchronous meetings that we do with you, where we present information from the modules and do a little group work together. And then you meet outside of those synchronous meetings to continue to advance your action plan for what you're going to deploy on your campus. But the schedule for those synchronous meetings, you can see them listed there on this slide as well. They'll begin on February 12th and run through April 9th. They happen every other week. And it's set for the very first session, which has to happen from 4 to 5 Eastern Standard Time. All of the others will meet from 2 to 3 Eastern Standard Time. And again, we'll send this slide deck to everyone that registered for this so that you'll have those dates that you can share for your team members to hold. The last slide we have here is, I'm not going to read all of these, but I'm just going to mention that the Emergency Aid for Basic Needs Academy is just one of a host of programming efforts that we do with institutions to help them improve upon student success. We do work around curriculum and course redesign as well, first year experience, transfer experience, faculty development, retention cohort. So all types of things that we offer. You can find out more about these on our website, gardnerinstitute.org, or you can ask for more information about them by emailing the info@jngi.org. And we can provide any additional information about emergency aid or any of our other offerings that we have at the Institute. So with that, I'm going to stop the share. And I'm going to, oh, I see. Jill put in the chat that she apologized for her tickle in her throat with the cold.
Sorry, yeah.
But we wanted to open it up to see if there were any other questions that people had. You can either put them in the chat, or I believe Brittany has made it so now you can unmute yourself and just directly ask the question. There we go. Brittany's saying she'll allow video now, so you can unmute yourself and turn on your camera and just ask your question. And Jill and I are happy to answer any of it. If you have a question that you would prefer not to be on the recording, we can wait till the end here and we'll stop the recording and hang around for a little bit to answer any of those questions. So we'll open the floor now to see if anyone has any questions related to the Academy itself.
And Brent, I will say with the schedule, we have the 5 synchronous meetings, but we also will schedule some check-ins with you as you implement throughout the year. So this is sort of goes into the first semester of next academic year. We'll check in with you at the beginning to see if you're set up and you're tracking your students, and we'll check in with you at the end of the fall term through the re-enrollment of those students in the beginning of the second semester, because we'll help you track that data, especially for the transformation schools, but really for all of them. Because we know your IR teams are pressed for time, and this is like just one more thing they have to do. So we will be available, especially to answer sort of fundraising questions and the data collection questions throughout. So we'll have some asynchronous and some other availability for really like a 12-month period.
Hey, Brent, can I ask a quick question?
Certainly. I'm
Hey,
still
once
going
we
to
get,
Kat, though.
I know exactly, Kat. Me and Kat are on it both, so I don't know how I got named Kat, but it was funny. I told her I was going to start posting as her and make her sound crazy, but I'm crazy enough. Hey, once we get to putting our team together from finance or whatever, do we just forward the links to them about future meetings? Or do they sign up or do we sign up?
No, so what you'll do, so for the transformation schools, what you'll do is, in your case, you'll email me your team members. We just need the name and the email addresses, and we'll get them entered in to our learning management system, Brightspace, for the academy, and then we will forward out to everybody an invite for those synchronous meetings so that they'll be involved.
And I see Katrina's question in the chat about recommending the time limits on how many times a student can request or apply for emergency aid. This is one of the topics that we talk about when we walk through setting up criteria for your emergency aid program. So we'll give you different models and some different recommendations through that. So that is something that we'll address in the academy.
Yeah, and it's not that we would say there's a specific best practice with it. It is more kind of limited to what are your goals with it and what are your available resources.
Right. What's your capacity?
For allowing it to happen. Other questions that folks have? Whether they be Kat or Thomas or anyone else.
Kat has all kind of questions, but we don't need to discuss them here probably. Okay, well, as I mentioned, we will send out this slide deck along with the link for the application for those of you that aren't in our transformation cohort to everyone who registered within this. But at this time, I'm going to stop the recording, and if there is anyone